Every year, the top teams in your fantasy league probably has the best running backs. So, in order for you to be that top team, in this video we will be going over what running backs you should take in your 2020 NFL Fantasy Football Draft. If you like what you see, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Check out our other videos during the week. We have so much content coming out to you guys, so get ready and stay tuned. Now, let's get into the video. So before I start this video, I want to make sure that we all know that for all of our fantasy football videos, we will be going through PPR rankings. If you're not sure what PPR means, PPR is points per reception. Now that we got that off, let's get started. So my running back number 10 for the 2020 NFL season for your fantasy team is Austin Ekeler. Now, you'd be surprised that Austin Ekeler is number 10 because you're going to be like, hey, you're missing this guy and that guy. Well, there's always a reason for everything, but we're going to start with Ekeler. Austin Ekeler is in a great situation this year. We saw last year that Austin Ekeler absolutely flourished when Melvin Gordon was not on the field due to his contract issue. Now, with an unsure quarterback and the running game being the only secure thing for the Los Angeles Chargers, Austin Ekeler should be their rock. Expect him to catch over 80 passes and eclipse at least 600 rushing yards. I expect high touchdown volume as well in the passing game, so he's definitely a guy you should keep a lookout for in your NFL draft. Now, coming in at number 9 is Joe Mixon. Now, a lot of people believe Joe Mixon is either a player you love or a player you hate. That's why he's at number 9 for me. I don't hate him, I don't love him. The problem with Joe Mixon is he's on a team that is a very inconsistent team. Oftentimes, Mixon is going to burn fantasy owners. Now, when I say burn fantasy owners, I mean he's going to get you 11 points per game, and you're going to be pretty upset about it. Now, you need to understand, if Zach Taylor, the Bengals head coach, can commit to the run game, Joe Mixon would be a great fantasy asset. Now, he's extremely talented. He has 2 offensive linemen in Billy Price and Jonah Williams coming back next year, and he has A.J. Green coming back nice and healthy, and a brand new quarterback in Joe Burrow. Now that there's actually a threat in the passing game, hopefully Zach Taylor can exploit teams through the run. Coming in at number 8 is Miles Sanders. Now, Miles Sanders is number 8 because he doesn't have as high of a ceiling as some of these other guys. Now, when I'm watching Miles Sanders, I think this guy could be great. I think he can be a very consistent running back who scores 16 to 18 points per game, but I do not see his ceiling being as high as the other guys on this list. Now, Miles Sanders was splitting running back duties for most of the year last year, but now, since Jordan Howard has moved to Miami, he seems like a great running back for you to hop on in your NFL draft. Now, coming in at number 7 is Aaron Jones. Now, Aaron Jones is kind of a tricky situation. Last year, he scored 16 rushing touchdowns and 3 receiving touchdowns. He was an absolute touchdown machine. Given the way the NFL is and historically, he's not going to get near the amount of touchdowns he did last year. I do expect him to get around double-digit rushing touchdowns and a couple receiving touchdowns, but do not expect him to go off like he did last year and have the number 2 overall running back season. I don't think that's really what's going to happen this year. He's still a solid pick, but I'd be really weary of picking him this year in the first round, unless you have to. Coming in at number 6, Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is a beast. Let's just put it like it is. Derrick Henry is an absolute beast. In a new metric by Next Gen Stats, Derrick Henry averages the most rushing yards more than expected. Now, that stat's a little interesting. We can go over that at another time, but the rushing yards expected stat is based on your blocking, how many more yards you get. And Derrick Henry is by far the leader in that category. He's a great running back. He's got an offensive line that would love to block for him with Taylor Lewan anchoring the line at left tackle. Derrick Henry could have a great season. Ryan Tannehill was great last season, and they really did a great job with their play-action, run-first offense. I think that offense could be strong. I think it could be stable, and I think it'll be great coming into next year. Now, coming in at number 5 is Alvin Kamara. Now, a lot of people have Alvin Kamara at number 4, number 3, but I have him at number 5. There's a reason for it. So, it's really not a surprise that he is down on the list for me because if you look over the last 2 years, Alvin Kamara kind of is dropping off. Now, I'm not sure why that is. I know he missed a little bit of time last year, was a little nicked up, but there are a couple things we need to look at first. First off, last year, he had 5 rushing touchdowns, which is decent. The year before, he had 14, and the year prior to that, he had 8. So definite downtick. The big thing we're really worried about is he had 0 100-yard rushing games last year. Now, I know Latavius Murray's a beast on the ground, and we really need to be weary of him stealing touchdowns and rushing attempts from Kamara. Kamara through the passing game every year is about the same, but there was a bit of a problem this year. Every year since he's been in the league, he's had 81 receptions. But this year he only had 533 yards and only 1 touchdown. In the other years, he had 800 and 700 yards. Like I said, it seems like he's on a constant decline. You need to be wary of Kamara and the fact that Latavius Murray is actually a good running back in the NFL, and you really need to watch out for him stealing his carries. Kamara should get around 20 touches a game, but you still need to be worried about picking him higher than the next 4 guys. Now, coming in at number 4 is Dalvin Cook. Now, Dalvin Cook, along with Kamara and Latavius Murray, has a definite handcuff you need, whether it be for injury reasons or touching reasons. It's completely different. But Dalvin Cook is not a guy who is going to lose touches to his backup like Alvin Kamara will. You need Alexander Mattison with Dalvin Cook because Dalvin Cook has proven to be an injury risk. He really helped a lot of fantasy teams get to the playoffs last year, but the problem was he missed the fantasy playoffs last year. He had so many great games, so many missed tackles, a lot of touchdowns, a bunch of long 20-plus yard runs, but he couldn't make it the full distance of the fantasy season. You need to be wary of that when drafting Cook, and that's why I have him at 4. Now, he is a factor in the passing game when he racked up 40 receptions last year and 50 receptions this year. And last year, he missed 5 games, and this year he missed 2 games. So be wary of those stats, but I think Dalvin Cook, if he's healthy for all 16 games, he's a guarantee for 1,300 rushing yards, 10-plus touchdowns, and at least 7 100-yard games. He had 5 last year in a great showing, and Dalvin Cook really showed us last year what he can do. Now, coming in number 3 is Ezekiel Elliott. Now, Ezekiel Elliott consistently is one of the best running backs in the NFL, and there is no doubt about it. But let's be honest, if we watch recently Ezekiel Elliott compared to his younger years, he's not as fast as he was, and he doesn't really stay in the game as much as he does. Now, if you're somebody who watches Cowboys football, you will see him check out of the game quite often, which aggravates a lot of Cowboy fans and a lot of fantasy owners. However, Ezekiel Elliott usually gets around 300 carries per season. Last season, he had 1,300 yards and 12 touchdowns, which is ridiculous. That's a great fantasy year. 7 100-yard games is great. He had over 50 receptions. He's a factor in the passing game. Ezekiel Elliott's a great running back, and you really can't go wrong drafting him as long as you're not drafting him 1 or 2. The thing about Ezekiel Elliott, though, and you need to be worried about this year, is Ezekiel Elliott is in an offense with Mike McCarthy, and Mike McCarthy historically doesn't like to run the ball. Now, let's take a comparison with Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones in 2018 under Mike McCarthy only had 133 attempts for 728 yards and 8 touchdowns. Now, 8 touchdowns is a lot. He's kind of a goal line beast. But Aaron Jones without Mike McCarthy, 236 carries, almost 1,100 yards, 16 touchdowns. So you really can see Aaron Jones is a good running back away from McCarthy, and I would be weary of McCarthy in that new Cowboys offense because it will be a new offense. Prescott's going to have to learn, Elliott's going to have to learn, these receivers are going to have to learn a brand new offense because Jason Garrett is now somewhere else. Now, coming in at number 2 is where Jason Garrett is now, and that's New York Giants running back Saquon Barkley. If you've watched the Giants recently, in the last couple of years, you know that Saquon was underutilized. Now, you're like, really? Was he Yes, he was underutilized. Last year, he missed 3 games due to injury, more like 3.5, 4 games because he left Tampa early due to injury. He had 217 carries. To put that into perspective, when Ezekiel Elliott was suspended for 6 games in 2017, he still had 242 carries. Barkley played 3 more games with 30 less carries under Pat Shurmur and Pat Shurmur's offense. I'm very weary of many Broncos this year. Under Pat Shurmur, Saquon Barkley really struggled to get consistent touches. So oftentimes where Barkley would have a great first half and struggle big time in the second half due to a lack of carries and a lack of commitment in the run game. I don't see that being a problem with Jason Garrett. He seems like a run-first guy. He seems to like to involve his running backs in everything. Ezekiel Elliott, not the best hands in the league, but he has very solid hands. And he had 70 receptions in 2018 and 50 in 2019. Barkley now, a more talented running back, everybody believes that. He can be the best in the league. Now, if he gets the touches that he deserves and that he's capable of handling, he's going to be the best running back in the league and possibly in fantasy. But due to being kind of unknown, due to new coaching staff and a new head coach, Barkley's going to be at number 2. Barkley does have a very, very high ceiling and a very high floor. So be reminded that he's really a can't-miss player every year in fantasy. Number 1, no surprise, is Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey is a great fantasy running back. He catches 100 passes a year. He rushes almost 250 to 300 times a year. He's a touchdown machine. He's just an all-around beast. and he's a PPR gem. Now, Barkley catches a lot of passes, Zeke catches some passes, but no one catches McCaffrey passes. McCaffrey catches 100 plus passes a year, which is insane. In PPR format, whether you have half PPR scoring or full PPR scoring, you get a point or half a point for every single catch. And McCaffrey, last year, was one of the best receivers in the game, not even just a running back. Now, if you look at his rushing stats, 287 rushes for almost 1,400 yards and 15 touchdowns. That's insane. Fantastic running back. But he had 116 receptions for over 1,000 yards and 4 receiving touchdowns. To put that into perspective, every single game McCaffrey played, he put up numbers as a player like Kenny Golladay without the touchdown upside. He put up great amount of touchdowns. He gets a lot of receptions. Very safe player to choose in your draft. It was like having Joe Mixon and Cooper Kupp in the same player combining points every week. It was fantastic. McCaffrey's a can't-miss player, and he'll be great for your fantasy draft. Now, before we get out of the video, I want to give you guys a couple sleepers that you can keep your eye on for fantasy this year. Number one is Le'Veon Bell. Now, Le'Veon Bell is interesting. Adam Gase really showed a lack of interest with giving Le'Veon touches last year. But since their offense still lacks a lot of weapons, Le'Veon could be a great player for you to pick late in your draft. He's kind of falling to the 5th or 6th round, so keep an eye on him there. Kenyon Drake is another great running back to pick. He's actually going in rounds 2 and 3 in drafts. I have him as my running back number 12 behind Nick Chubb and the rest of the running backs. However, Kenyon Drake should possess a very high upside, but he does have high bust potential. A couple of running backs you want to stay away from this year. Number one is Nick Chubb. I think you should stay away from Nick Chubb as much as you possibly can. The thing about Nick Chubb is he saw an absolute huge crater in his points when Kareem Hunt was back. And Kareem Hunt is going to be there for all 16 games this year. So you got to keep that in mind when you're making your draft pick. Don't pick Nick Chubb too high. I'm not a big fan. And another guy you kind of want to keep away from is Melvin Gordon. We're thinking of Melvin Gordon back in, 2018 when he was pretty good, 10 touchdowns. But he's got to split carries with Philip Lindsay now. So I'd stay away from those two guys. I don't think they're the best choices for your fantasy team. I know I won't be taking them on mine. So that is definitely something you should look at for your fantasy draft. So thank you guys for watching the video. Check out our other videos this week. If you like what you saw, hit that subscribe button, smash that like button. We're almost at 1,000 subscribers. We appreciate everyone who came to watch. Thank you guys and have a great day.